What's up, everyone? Welcome to Treadmill Talks on this Sunday. Fourth one going. So if you're new here, this is Treadmill Talks, where I walk on the treadmill, talk football on Sunday afternoons. Just a way for me to work out on the treadmill and talk football with you guys. So if you're watching, appreciate you tuning in. Drop a comment on YouTube. I'll have to answer questions if you got questions about players, trades, prospects, all those good things. We've talked about all those things on the streams before. I'll be about 45 minutes, me just walking on the treadmill talking football. So hope you guys tune in. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know. So not a whole lot of new news in football this week. No big player signings. Obviously, we have to draft in like 20 days, 18 days, something like that. So super exciting for that. There is some buzz today that I saw, which I think was interesting. These red flags and character concerns from Malik Neighbors. I'm not sure where they're coming from. I hadn't heard any of that before this. So curious to see why those are coming out now. Generally what happens with news like this is it's a team that's probably outside the window of drafting him that releases this kind of stuff through back channels just to get him to fall. So we saw it last year with Jalen Carter. It's not a coincidence that Jalen Carter is now valid concerns, but there's no coincidence that it got dropped literally an hour before we were supposed to make press conferences at the Combine last year. I think it was a team trying to draft him, maybe the Eagles who ended up drafting him, or maybe someone else getting him to drop. So I think the same thing with Malik Neighbors this year. These character concerns are kind of blown out of proportion a little bit. So I'm not worried about Malik Neighbors' character concern. They're saying he's high maintenance. They're saying he won't last in the big city. At the end of the day, like his time is going to be sucked up with football. Like he doesn't have a lot of free time. Yes, he's got some, not till the offseason. But once he gets drafted, it's going to be meetings, rookie mini camp, training camp, season, preseason. Like he doesn't have like all this free time that people think he's going to have. I also don't think he's high maintenance. Now I haven't really got to spend too much time talking to him, but I think it's just interesting these concerns are coming up now. So don't worry about the Malik Neighbors red flags, as people are calling it. Also, a lot of talk this week about J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix. I've always said that I think Michael Penix was my number one quarterback in this class. My concern was going to be landing spot for him. I think he's got the maturity, the talent. He's not just on the upside of the talent, but I think he can go in and lead a team right away. I was always just worried about Michael Penix landing spot. Had a really good pro day, so we'll see what happens. He might land high in the draft. He might go first round. I don't think he will. I think he still goes second round, but if Denver, Minnesota doesn't trade up, one of those other teams want someone, he's also a guy that could be drafted and sit for a year, which would be really great for him. But in the NFL, I think sitting for a year is good for all quarterbacks, to be honest with you. So thanks for tuning in for Treadmill Talks. Like I said, if you got questions, drop them in the chat there on YouTube. Love to answer your questions. If you got trade talk questions, player questions, specific team questions, if you're looking at making a trade in the offseason, you got prospect questions, let me know. This is just me walking on the treadmill, talking football with you guys. So I like J.J. McCarthy this year as well. I think he's up there. There's talk he could go 2 to Washington. He could go 3 to New England. I think J.J. McCarthy definitely improved his draft stock over this process. He looked good at the Combine. I think people are impressed with his ability. He didn't get asked to do too much in Michigan, but I think being asked not to doing too much and not doing too much are two different things. Like he wasn't asked too much. What he was asked to do, he did really well. So I think he has potential to go in there and be a week 1 starter. All these guys could not be week 1 starters. I mean, I think Caleb Williams going to the Bears, which seems like a lockdown, is going to be week 1 starter. They don't have anybody else. But whoever Minnesota takes, they could sit behind Sam Darnold for a couple weeks. Whoever Denver takes, like they could roll out Jarrett Stidham. Washington probably starts right away. Whoever goes there, I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels. New England, I think it's probably going to be the starter. Now Bailey Zappi could get a couple games in, so we'll see. So thanks for tuning in, Treadmill Talks. We got another 40 minutes or so walking on the treadmill. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat there on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe. But let's talk about prospects in general. And we see all this talk of like people ranking their rookies. I got this guy 1, this guy 2, this guy 3, whatever. I don't do that. I don't like ranking rookies right now. What I've been doing, and I have done since the season, was I tier my players. So I tier prospects, and then I rank landing spots. So what I've done is I've tiered my prospects. But at the end of the day, my quarterbacks, per se, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix are all tier 1 guys for me. Is there that much difference between what Caleb Williams is, who most people have as 1, and Michael Penix, for most people, have as 5. I don't think so. Same with running backs. Like there's no consensus number 1 running back. Even wide receivers, some people have Neighbors over Marvin Harrison. Is Odunze a clear 3? Is he closer to Neighbors or is he closer to the 4 guy? Most people have Brian Thomas. I don't think it matters. I'm cheering right now, but what I'm doing is I'm ranking my landing spots. Because to me, that matters. If you want to know why this matters, just look at last year. Jackson Smith-Njigba was the number 1 wide receiver across the board. No one was arguing that. But draft happened, and everyone started saying Jordan Addison, say Flowers, Quentin Johnson should be maybe the number 1 in redraft or the number 1 rookie that year because of the opportunity. So opportunity and team fit matters. Do we still believe Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best receiver out of that bunch? Yes, but we knew being behind Lockett and Metcalf, year 1 was going to be slow to develop, slow to get targets, working on offense. The hope was that Lockett was going to be gone this year. Lockett's back, so it might not be till year 3 that we see Jason really ascend into what we thought he was going to be. That's the difference between redraft and dynasty of how do we rank these players. So I'm going to give you, I put my QB1s out on Twitter, but this first I'm going to release my landing spot rankings. And I also do them for redraft and dynasty because I think that's different. So let's start quarterback. For redraft and dynasty, I have the Minnesota Viking quarterback being the number 1 landing spot. Listen, Caleb Williams will go to the Bears. We know that's pretty much a lock-in, but I think Minnesota is better equipped for quarterbacks. So whether that's Jaden Daniels, J.D. McCarthy, Drake May, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, that's my number 1 landing spot. Talking, they got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson will come back, Aaron Jones, who's a good pass catcher. They have a great offensive line. I think the head coach in Kevin O'Connell definitely knows how to coach a quarterback. We saw Kirk Cousins be a top 10 quarterback there. And let's face it, Chris, although he's good, is middle of the road talent-wise, but was elevated by the team around him. So I have Minnesota 1. Now, for redraft and dynasty, I have the Bears 2. Again, you're going to a team, you're starting week 1, which matters, especially for redraft. Matters a little bit for dynasty because you know what they are. You have DJ Moore, have Keenan Allen, have Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. Good mix. I still have questions about that offensive line. Maybe they address that at 9. It sounds like the Bears are not going to trade out at 9. What's funny about this draft is no one's really talking about the Bears at 9 a lot because Caleb Williams, they can get a starter. If the Bears were just drafting at 9, they could get a good quarterback. They could get the 4th best quarterback, but they could also get a top-end offensive line. They're probably not getting Joe Alt, who I think is the best offensive lineman. He probably goes, I think, to Tennessee. But they can get one of the other guys in there. So 9 is a great spot. Like, you're still drafting top 10. So getting 2 top 10 picks really increases the value for the Bears. So if it's Caleb Williams at 1, they get an offensive lineman at 9. I really like that for Caleb Williams' development. So they're both 2. Now, this is where the rankings get changed. For redraft, I have the Broncos as 3, but I have them 5th in dynasty. And here's why. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, I think the rookie's going to go there, start right away. I think he has the best chance of starting over Jared Stidham compared to Washington's probably going to start. So I think they both have equal chance starting. Maybe Washington a little more, but I like the weapons. I like Cortland Sutton as an established guy. Big play receiver, can be out there. Marvin Mims, I'm not high, but people seem to really like. Greg Dulcich comes back. Javonte Williams is the running game. I think Sean Payton as a coach is the better coach who can, I think, mold a quarterback. So I have them as 3 in redraft, 5 in dynasty. For dynasty, I actually have the Raiders 3. Now, do I think the Raiders draft a guy in the first round? No. I think they're going to run with Hayden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. But let's say they take a Bo Nix in the 2nd, 3rd round. Let's say they take Spencer Rattler, maybe a Jordan Travis. Dynasty-wise, I like that landing spot because you got Devontae Adams for another year. Kobe Myers is good. They got Michael Mayers at tight end. Zamir White, like, they're going to have draft picks they can build. They're building that team right. I like what Antonio Pierce is doing. Just won't get the production this year. That's why their Raiders for me are 8 in redraft, but 3rd in dynasty. So redraft, I have Vikings 1, Bears 2, Broncos 3. Redraft, I have the Patriots 4. Again, a guy who's going to come in and start right away. So for redraft, that's super important. You're going to see the production. Problem is receiving weapons. I think Kendrick Bourne, it's not a bad option there. Like, I think he's going to be a sneaky value in redrafts. Not a bad option. Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson in the backfield. We'll see what Gerard Mayo does there. New coach, first time head coach. Generally not a great pairing. It's a good pairing, but not a great pairing. So they're 4 for me. 5, I have the Commanders. Listen, I think the Commanders, that person's probably going to start right away. They have Terry McLaurin, and then not a whole lot. Yes, they have Austin Eckler, who can catch on the backfield, but Jahan Dotson, De'Ami Brown, like that second wide receiver, Cole Turner at tight end, doesn't bode well for having a ton of weapons that can help out. So that's where I'm having them at 5 in redraft. 6, I have the Giants, partially because I don't think the Giants, whoever they draft, if they draft a quarterback, is going to start right away. Still think Daniel Jones with that contract is the starter. Not a ton of weapons unless they draft some in the draft. Now, we'll talk about this later, but I think they're a sneaky place to get Brock Bowers. Darren Waller's talked about retirement, hasn't committed to this season. Maybe they draft Brock Bowers. They're at 6. Give that quarterback some weapons. So I think redraft is not great. Maybe it's okay for Dynasty. So they're 6 for redraft. 7, I have the Saints. Again, we're talking about guys who aren't going to start this year, but good situations. Let's say the Saints let's say these guys in this tier draft this Bo Nix, Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis type. Not going to start this year, but when they go into starting the game next year, solid wide receivers. So Saints have Chris Olave, Raheem Shaheed, Juwan Johnson at tight end. Maybe they draft another pass-catching option. Kendra Miller at running back. Maybe another year Alvin Kamara. Taysom Hill still there to kind of do some gimmicky gadget plays. Run the ball a little bit. They can sign up Bruiser back, to replace kind of Jamal Williams. So I think it's just a good fit for them. Probably get a new head coach. So it's a good landing spot long-term for redraft. Not great, maybe better for Dynasty. So Saints are 7, Raiders are 8 for redraft. So redraft rankings, landing spot for quarterbacks. Vikings, Bears, Broncos, Patriots, Commanders, Giants, Saints, Raiders. Now, that's redraft. Let's talk Dynasty. We've already said Vikings are 1. We know they got some good young pieces there. Bears are 2. They've got some good pieces. Keep down a little older. DJ Moore a little bit older than Jefferson. Not as much. 3, I have the Raiders. Again, maybe some aging pieces, but maybe a better chance to start sooner than some of these guys. 4 in Dynasty. I actually have the Saints. Again, we're talking about probably could start next year. Derek Carr's contract could be coming up. Move on from Derek Carr. Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, some good young weapons there. For Dynasty, not going to get production this year. 5, I have the Broncos. You see starting production, so still going to be there. Going to be a good starter. Still has Courtland Sutton right now. If Marvin Mims can be a good player, which I'm not sure he will be, but let's say he does, you have 2 really good receivers. They could trade Courtland Sutton after this year. Maybe pick up a high first-round pick. Maybe it trades enough to get another receiver, Ayuk, Higgins, next year when they're available. So they're 5 on my Dynasty. 6, I have the Patriots. I think the Patriots need to find that number 1 receiver. I like Kendrick Bourne. Just think they need that true alpha. Maybe they get it to Marvin Harrison this year. Maybe that changes some things around. 6 for the Patriots. 7's Commanders. Again, don't love the pass-catching weapons. Not sure about the coaching situation there. 8's the Giants. So that's my Dynasty rankings for landing spots for quarterbacks. Again, Dynasty redraft changes. Redraft, I want the guys that are playing this year. Dynasty, I kind of want a little bit of both, but I might later on go with those guys that maybe get started jobs next year, especially if my Dynasty team is set in quarterback this year. So if I have Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, I can wait a year. I don't need to get a guy who's going to start right away. Let's talk running backs, landing spots. So you talk prospects with people. The running back prospects, you talk to 5 guys, you're going to get 5 different orders, and you're probably going to get 8 to 10 names. Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, Braylon Allen, Blake Corum, all these other names. Don't know. Let's look at the landing spots. So let's start redraft again. Redraft, what we're looking for in redraft is we're looking at a guy who can get bulk of the carries this year, who can probably be the lead back, or is going to be on a good timeshare. So 50-50 split. What we're not looking for is like the pass catching back. So number 1 running backs, Dallas for me is the number 1 landing spot for running back this year. No real competition. Rico Dowdle's there, who I think is okay, but not great. They re-signed him 1 year. Good offensive line. Good offense in general. Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks. Good offense. I think it's a great landing spot for the running back. Number 1 landing spot. Number 2 for me is the Chargers. No, Harbaugh's going to run the ball. My concern with them over the Cowboys is not as good as pass-catching weapons, so you don't have as good an offense. Still good quarterback, but who's catching the ball? So can drives be kept alive if they're down to a 3rd and 8? Can they keep that drive alive? with Quentin Johnson, Josh Palmer? I'm not sure. Number 3 is the Giants. Good offensive line. Saquon Barkley's had good years there behind that offensive line. Again, not a great offense in terms of keeping drives alive, but he's going to get a ton of carries, so the volume's going to be there. Number 4 is Carolina. Now we get a little bit of competition. Can a rookie come in and beat out Chuba Hubbard? Probably has the option. Like if you're talking about guys you can beat out, Chuba Hubbard's the most beatable guy out there in terms of competition-wise. Young offense, looking to revamp things. We'll see what happens. Don't have great receivers. They have Deontay Johnson. We'll see what happens in Carolina, but that's my 4th best running spot. Number 5, Cincinnati. Listen, Joe Mixon had a ton of volume there the past few years. I like Cincinnati. Now, they did bring in Zach Moss, so a lot of competition there. Chase Brown's still there. We'll see what happens. So it's not the best landing spot, but I still think it's good. Number 6 in a redraft for me is Minnesota. Let Madison go. Ty Chandler's still there. Aaron Jones is still there. So they might bring someone in to compete, maybe with Ty Chandler. We'll see. Not the best landing spot. 7's the Rams. Can the Rams bring in someone, and can that person beat out Kyron Williams? I might move the Rams up a little bit. We'll see where they draft. That's where these things start changing once we actually know who's there. Listen, Kyron Williams was really good last year, but it didn't seem like the Rams were sold on Kyron Williams being the guy for them. So they could easily move off him. Number 8, Arizona. As we're doing, like James Conner is getting a little long in the tooth. Good running back, tons of volume. Maybe they try to save James Conner another year or two by giving him less volume, so work a rookie in a little more. Number 9, I have San Fran. Obviously, you have Christian McCaffrey. And the rookie's not going to beat out Christian McCaffrey, but they use Christian McCaffrey. Well, it looks like down the road, down the end of the season with Elijah Mitchell, they try to work someone else in. So maybe San Fran drafts a guy, rotates him in a little more. Again, kind of prolongs the lifespan of Christian McCaffrey by giving him less work. 10, I have Buffalo. Probably more of a pass catcher, but they could also use a bruiser. James Cook is a little bit of a mix. He's not super big, not super great at pass catching, even though people said he had that profile. Not really sure where people are getting that profile because he didn't have it in college. So they need a complementary piece to James Cook. So they draft someone. I have them 10. 11, New Orleans. Alvin Kamara getting old. Kendrick Miller, kind of a smaller back. Jamal Williams didn't do great, so they're number 10 for me, or 11 for me for landing spot. 12, I have Tampa Bay. Listen, I like Rachaad White, like what he did, but wasn't super efficient. Yards per carry wasn't great. So maybe Tampa Bay brings another guy, maybe get a little more pass catching work, rotate in. High efficiency guy would do really well in Tampa Bay. But again, redraft, I don't think there's going to be a ton of volume there this year. That was 12. 13, I have Houston. Obviously, aside Saquon Barkley, but we know with Saquon Barkley, there's always has been injury issues. Houston doesn't need to run him into the ground. Houston might want to pass the ball more. Maybe they bring in a pass catcher. So we'll see. 14 for me is Philadelphia. Obviously losing Swift. But bringing in Barkley. Sorry, Houston brought in Mixon. Philadelphia brought in Saquon Barkley. Do they mix someone in with Barkley? Does Houston mix someone with Joe Mixon? They're 14. 15, I have Baltimore. Obviously, Baltimore got Derrick Henry. Great signing for them. How much longer does Derrick Henry really have in the league? So maybe they bring someone in, work him in. We'll see what happens. They have Keontae Mitchell, who they drafted last year. We'll see if he can make the role. And then 69, Green Bay. Obviously, Josh Jacobs is a starter. They brought back A.J. Dillon, which I was surprised about. I live in Wisconsin. Surprised they brought back Dillon. Thought maybe they bring someone else in. Maybe more pass catching back. We'll see what happens. So those are my redraft landing spots. And I'll put these all out on Twitter. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, drop a follow. The D Unit 13. I'll also put these out on dynastybrosfootball.com. These are my landing spots. Let's start dynasty landing spots for running backs. A little bit of a shift. I have the Chargers as 1. They were 2 in redraft. They're 1 for dynasty. I think long term, Harbaugh's going to be there. We know what they're going to be. We know they're going to be run happy. Dallas for me is 2. So those two flip-flop between redraft and dynasty. Simple case, coaching, we don't know what's happening. Mike McCarthy might not be there in Dallas next year. So changing coach might change their philosophy. Now, it could go more run-heavy. It could also go more pass-happy. They also could get rid of Dak. It sounds like Dak might be able to go to free agency next year. So if they let Dak go, does that change their philosophy? Do they bring someone else in? All that changes. Too many red flags and question marks for them to be 1. Put them 2. 3, I actually have Carolina. I think a young team, building around Bryce Young, building that offense. I think if they bring a guy in, he might not be the starter right now with Chuba Hubbard, but I think next year would be the starter. So they're 3. Giants move to 4. So Carolina and New York flip between dynasty and redraft. So In redraft, Giants were 3, Carolina's 4. Dynasty, they swap. Giants 4. Think they have to rebuild that offensive line, need to get some more pass catchers. Don't know what's happening with Daniel Jones. He's probably done after this year. So, again, more question marks. Is Brian Daboll still there? Don't know. Get some little question marks there. 5, I still have Cincinnati. Good offense. We know Joe Burrow is going to be there. We know Jamar Chase is going to be there. T. Higgins is there for a year. Can a rookie come in, beat out Zach Moss? So still 5. 7 and 8, still Rams in Arizona. 9 actually switches to New Orleans. And Galvin Kamara is gone after this year. They bring a guy in who can take over. He might get a year behind Jamal Williams, behind Kendrick Miller, and then get 2025, be the starter. So we're talking rankings for landing spots for these rookies. You're going to continue to go through them, but if you guys are watching, thanks for watching Treadmill Talks on Sunday. Drop a comment, question, thumbs up, encouragement in the chat. Really helps me going. I'm on the treadmill, going at 2 miles an hour right now. Not running, just walking. Do it for 45 minutes. Talk football with you guys. We're going to get back to these rankings. So, again, I had New Orleans at 9. They were 11 for redraft, 9 for dynasty. 10 actually moves to Tampa Bay. I like Rachaad White, but we talked about his yards per carry was not great. So maybe they bring someone in who can kind of be more of the workhorse. They brought back Baker, Mike Evans another year. Maybe after 2025, they kind of revamp that offense, build around a young running back. We'll see. 11, Baltimore moves up to 11. Don't know how long Derrick Henry's going to be there, so that player gets more of a bump in 25, 26. Number 12, San Fran drops from 9 to 12 for Dynasty. And here's why. I think if you use McCaffrey right, you get 3 more years out of him at a high level. Sounds like they might trade Ayuk. Don't know what's going to happen. But that change in offense, if Brock Purdy is still good and they get rid of Ayuk, maybe they go to a more run-heavy team, moves them up a little bit in Dynasty because we don't know what next year. If they keep Ayuk this year, free agent next year, maybe that changes things. That's why they moved up a couple spots they dropped a couple spots from 9 to 12 because I just don't know what that's going to look like. 13, Buffalo moves from 10 to 13 in Dynasty. Again, not sure what's going to happen there. Josh Allen, obviously, Bills are my team, so I'm a little more cynical probably than most people on the Bills. Josh Allen's good. Like, he's still going to take stuff. James Cook is still young enough. They drop for Dynasty. 14, I have Houston. 15, I have Philadelphia for the same reasons. Now, running backs, weird because there's always 2 styles of running backs for me. There's your bell cow backs, your big backs who are going to bruise. But there's also these pass-catching backs, and they matter a little bit. Not too much difference in there. I think the biggest difference for me is Cincinnati. If they draft a pure pass-catching back, they drop a ton for me for redraft and dynasty. Zach Moss, Chase Brown can do that role, so drafts a little bit. Draft in rankings, they go to 10 for both redraft and dynasty for a pass-catching back. They're the biggest one. Philadelphia bumps up a lot for me. Those are the 2 biggest ones. Philadelphia with Saquon Barkley might bring in a pass-catching back who can supplant Kenneth Gainwell and kind of take that role. So those are the 2 biggest switches for me in terms of what type of running back you're looking for. So big backs who could be the first and second down guy or strictly a third down guy. Let's talk wide receiver now. Wide receivers also weird because you have what I consider your big outside wide receivers. So you have guys like T. Higgins, 6'3", 6'4", Ted on the line, Mike Evans, who don't go in motion. You have guys like C.D. Lamb, Stephon Diggs, still number 1 receivers, but on 3 wide receiver sets, moved to the slot. And then you have strictly slot guys who don't play on 2 wide receiver sets and kind of come in and play that slot. Depends on the situation. It's really wonky. So I'm just going to rank them as 1 wide receiver. Like, whatever it is, that's where it's going to be. Now, this will change if you have a slot guy and you draft a slot guy, you probably go down the rankings, have 2 big names. So if you're Tampa Bay and you draft an Adonai Mitchell, drops you probably in redraft, probably bumps you up in things because you're going to be behind Mike Evans this year, move up next year. But these are my wide receiver landing spot rankings. Number 1 for me in both redraft and dynasty is the Chargers. Let's face it. You have a great quarterback in Justin Herbert, and you have really no competition. Quentin Johnson is okay. We saw lots of drops on it. Didn't really flash a lot this letter. Josh Palmer's a good wide receiver 3. I don't think he pushes for content. No tight end, no running back catching passes. So that to me is the ultimate landing spot for anybody, whether that's Marvin Harrison, whether that's Malik Neighbors, whether that's Roman Dudes, they're going to step in and probably lead that team in targets. So they're number 1. 2 for me for redraft is the Giants. Now, I'm hoping the Giants go and get a bigger guy. I don't really want them getting a Roman Wilson who's more of a slot guy. I want them to get someone who is either tethered to the outside, like a Malik Neighbors, or like a Marvin Harrison who could be on the outside in 2 wide receiver sets. 3 wide sets, he may move to the slot, move around, go in motion, get some coverage. So they're 2 for me for redraft. They're 3 for dynasty. They flop with New England, who is 3 for redraft. If New England goes out and gets a top quarterback at number 3, let's say they get a Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, they draft a receiver in the 2nd round. Got to fight with Kendrick Bourne, who's very sure-handed, who I really like. That chemistry is going to be built, so I just wonder how much production. They'll probably be 2nd on the team in targets, not 1st. They'll probably be behind Kendrick Bourne. So I'm just curious to how it looks. But dynasty-wise, they're 2 because I think long-term, you build that chemistry, build that connection. It can be a great thing for the future. 4 for me in both redraft and dynasty is Arizona. So we know Arizona is going to need somebody to catch balls from Kyler Murray. You have a good quarterback, Kyler Murray. Have a good coach. Well, we think it's a good coach. We're not really sure. Question is, does Kyler stick around long term? And if you're the only guy, let's say Arizona gets Marvin Harrison, which is where I think he's going to go. What do defenses do? Bring your linebackers up, double coverage Marvin Harrison. Is Michael Wilson good enough to pull second coverage and pull that safety off? I'm not sure they are. Greg Dortch, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So there are 4 for me in both redraft and dynasty. 5 for me in redraft is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Rashee Rice situation's up in the air right now. Probably going to get suspended. I think it'll be 4 games. It'll probably get appealed down to 2, maybe 3. Hollywood Brown's there, so not a ton of redraft potential. That's why they're 4. They're actually 6 for me in dynasty. But it's just interesting to see how many targets that person gets. Probably gets a ton right off the bat. Obviously, Travis Kelce's going to lead in targets. Maybe takes a while to get in. So they're 5 in redraft, 6 in dynasty. They flop with the Bills. Bills are 6 in redraft. Now, this was done before the Stephon Diggs, so I'm actually probably going to have to move the Bills up. With Diggs now not being there, changes everything for Buffalo. We need a number 1 receiver. 7 for me in both redraft and dynasty is Carolina. Adam Thielen's still there. Adam Thielen had a great year last year. Can't deny that. Brought in Deontay Johnson. Can a rookie go there and make an impact right away? Depends on the type of receiver. They're bringing a slot guy. Maybe he gets a little more work. They're bringing a big body guy, Adonai Mitchell, Keon Coleman. Maybe he pushes Adam Thielen down the 3rd into the slot. We'll see. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Depends on the receiver. There's 7. 8 for me in both is actually Detroit. Listen, Amon-Ra St. Brown's good. Jameson Williams can be good. I think he's going to be good, but we just don't know. So I'm curious. Josh Reynolds gone. Can a guy go in there and be the 3rd wide receiver and be 2nd or 3rd in targets? Amon-Ra's 1. Can they compete with Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta for the 2nd targets? Can they be close enough that it doesn't matter, right? You can be 3rd and only be 2 targets behind a guy. I don't care that much. You're basically 2nd at that point. So sneaky 1 there at 8. 9, I have Denver. I have questions about Marvin Mims. Jerry Jeudy's gone. And they said Marvin Mims couldn't get on the field because he has the same skill set as Jerry Jeudy. I don't think Jerry Jeudy's all that great. So if you can't beat out Jerry Jeudy, who's just okay, what does that say about you in Marvin Mims? I don't know. I think it doesn't say great things about Marvin Mims. So I think the guy can go in there and beat out Marvin Mims pretty easily. They are 9th on both redraft and dynasty. 10 is Dallas. CeeDee Lamb's the 1. All these guys now we're talking about, they're going to be the 2. Michael Gallup's probably gone. Brandon Cooks is there. Brandon Cooks is good, but not great. So can a guy step in and be the guy? Have Jalen Tolbert, who they drafted last year, the year before, hasn't really shown a ton. So can a guy easily come in and be number 2, number 3 on that team in depth chart and targets? I think it's a real possibility, especially if they draft a guy early. Don't think Dallas does. I think they draft a guy 3rd round. They're not going to get one in the 1st. And they could. Probably seems a reach. I'll take a running back in 2, get a wide receiver 3. Maybe they get a wide receiver 2, running back in 3rd. We'll see. So Dallas is 10. 11 for me is Indy on both redraft and dynasty. I liked what I saw from Anthony Richardson in a small sample size last year. Michael Pittman re-signed there. I think he's a great alpha. Not a true alpha. I think if they brought in someone who could easily overtake him as the alpha. But Alex Pierce, Josh Downs are really wide receiver 3s for me. They're more of that slot guy. Maybe the guy moves around. So if you bring in a guy who can find a role there, I think can build a connection with Anthony Richardson, can take over. So I think we're looking good there. Oh, my treadmill stopped on me. Gotta restart here. We've been going for about 30 minutes on Treadmill Talks. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Gonna go for another 15, 20 minutes or so. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys got questions, comments, drop it in the chat on YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe for us too. Really helps us grow as a team, as a channel. Try to bring you some content. Try to do something just interesting and different for you guys. Be authentically me, just walking on treadmill talking football. We're talking rookie landing spot rankings, wide receivers. I already did quarterbacks, running backs from wide receiver. Just talked about Indy at 11. 12, I have Atlanta. I know what you're saying. What do you mean Atlanta? Have Drake London, Barden Darnell Mooney, have Kyle Pitts. I think there's room for a slot guy, a mid-fader, so like a Lad McConkey type. I don't think they're going to get Lad McConkey because I think it goes before them. Who can fit there? Drake London can kind of be the big alpha. Darnell Mooney stretches the field. Kind of someone over the middle. Compliment Kyle Pitts. 13 is New Orleans, both redraft and dynasty. Chris Olave is 1. I think Shaheed is the 2. For a field stretcher, can they bring in a guy who can be the 3 there? Juwan Johnson's not going to push you for targets. 14. Where is 14 at? Oh, I have the Rams. Love Puka Nacua. Think he's going to be the one for the future. Not a big guy. Cooper Kupp is still there, but how much longer is Cooper Kupp there? I think they've been looking for that third guy for a while. I think they lucked into Puka. Obviously, they saw something in him that a lot of us didn't. I think they really lucked out. He overperformed, I think. He has a little bit of regression this year, just FYI. But I'm not sure how much longer Cooper Kupp's going to be there. I think he's 30, 31. So I think there's room. Redraft, not so much. Dynasty for sure. They move up. 15 for me is Chicago. Listen, DJ Moore is not a top 5 wide receiver. I know that was making around on Twitter. DJ Moore, not a top 5 wide receiver. Keenan Allen's got 1 more year, maybe 2. So I think there's some room for potential to grow there. They're 15. 16 for me is the Jets. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Mike Williams. You have Aaron Rodgers this year, maybe next year. Can Mike Williams stay healthy? There's room for a third. People are talking about the Jets getting Roma Duze. We'll see. Teams are getting Brock Bowers. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So they are 16 for me. 17 is Tennessee. Hopkins has got another year or 2. 18 for me is, where's my 18? Tampa Bay. Mike Evans probably done it for this year. Chris Godwin might be a free agent. He might be gone. 19 for me is Minnesota. Don't love Jordan Addison. I think he had a good year. I think a lot of his touchdowns came on zone coverages, guys falling down, getting wide open type plays. I don't see him make a ton of spectacular football plays. Made some. Had a good year statistically. Just don't love him. New quarterback. We'll see what happens. 20 for me is San Fran, especially if they trade Ayuk. If they trade Ayuk, they're going to move up a ton, both rankings. Obviously, it opens up a ton of targets. George Kittle's getting long in the tooth. He might not be around much longer. I think that's interesting. 21's Miami. Same thing. Tyreek Hill has talked about playing. Last year, we're saying 2 more years. So this will be year 1. Next year's year 2. Opens the target. They don't have much after Tyreek and Waddle. So we're looking at that. We're going to roll on down there. 22 is Seattle. Lockett goes. Do they get a third guy to go? Metcalf, JSN, and a third guy there. So those are my wide receiver landing spot rankings. So I did quarterbacks, did running backs, did tight ends. So we're here at Treadmill Talks on this Sunday. Got another 10 minutes or so talking rankings for rookie landing spots. I'm not ranking rookie prospects. I don't believe in that until they get drafted. I think you tier them right now and you rank your landing spots. And then when we know who goes where, we can change things. If you look at last year, look at JSN, number 1 wide receiver prospect people had. It was probably number 1 in Dynasty, but it wasn't one in redraft because of the landing spot. Those things matter. Look at running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs was 2, and Zach Charbonnet was 3. All of a sudden, Bijan goes to Atlanta. Okay, he's still 1. But Gibbs was a clear 1 or 2, and Charbonnet fell because he was going to be behind Kenneth Walker. So these things definitely play out more than we think. So let's talk about tight end. Now, this year's class is Brock Bowers and then a group of who knows what. We'll see. This is where I think landing spot really matters because there's certain teams I think really good for redraft and dynasty, some that are not. So, number 1 for me in both redraft and dynasty, very much like running back, it's the Chargers. They lost Gerald Everett. They lost Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Again, if they draft Brock Bowers, which is who I think they'll take, personally, I think they should. unless Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison are there. I think they go Brock Bowers. We'll see. But if they go down and get a Ben Sinnott, one of these other guys, Cade Stover, they can play some role this year. Just the lack of competition really bumps them up the list for me. Number 2 for me for redraft is the Giants. There's a lot of questions about Darren Waller. Will he retire? Won't he retire? The fact that he hasn't made his mind up yet means to me that he's leaning towards retirement. He's also leaning to see what they do in the draft. So, Giants probably aren't getting a quarterback. I don't see them trading up. The contract with Daniel Jones is not great. I'm bumping up my speed a little bit here on the treadmill. What does that mean for Darren Waller? Maybe he doesn't want to play with Daniel Jones. Maybe he's hoping they draft a quarterback. Maybe he's hoping they draft a wide receiver. It's going to take some pressure off him. So, either way, he's probably not 100% or is older. He's been injured a lot, so maybe a tight end there definitely has potential. They're 2 in redraft, 3 in dynasty. They flopped with the Jets. Listen, the Jets are being linked to Brock Bowers. Do the Jets need a skilled tight end? Yes. But redraft, I have them lower because I don't think Aaron Rodgers uses the tight end the way people want. So if they go get Brock Bowers, is Aaron Rodgers going to get him the ball? We've seen it in his time in Green Bay. He just doesn't really use his tight end that much. Josh DeGuara had a good touchdown season, so maybe in the red zone, if they can get there. But they go up in dynasty because Rodgers might not be there next year. So that's why the Jets are 3 in redraft, 2 in dynasty for a tight end landing spot for these rookies. Number 4, I have Washington. I talked about this before. They had Terry McLaurin, and then what? Austin Eckler? Cool. I think a rookie could come in, especially if he gets drafted in the second round, beat out Cole Turner. I can beat out Jahan Dotson and probably Austin Eckler for second and team targets, which is what we want for our tight end. They are 4 in both redraft and dynasty. I like the pathway to opportunity. So when I'm ranking players, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for question marks and red flags and the pathway to opportunity. What does it look like? How easy is it going to be for them to get to a significant role in that offense? So Washington's 4 for tight end rookie landing spot rankings. 5 for me in redraft is actually Seattle. And they are 6th in dynasty. I like Seattle. Now, we know we have 3 receivers, so not a ton of volume this year, but maybe you get a little worked in. Maybe that offense changes a little bit. But for me in dynasty and 6 in redraft is Cincinnati. The problem with Cincinnati, very much like Seattle, they don't utilize their tight end, very much like Aaron Rodgers' offense. They don't utilize their tight end a ton. So that's my issue with Cincinnati. Every year we see them sign a guy, Irv Smith, Hayden Hurst, and they just don't use them well. That's not the offense used. Now, new offensive coordinator could change things, but I think the head coach, who's especially an offensive-minded head coach, isn't going to change a ton coming in. So they're 6 in redraft, 5 Cincinnati, 6 in redraft, 5 in dynasty rankings. 7 for me. Looks like I skipped 7. So Miami would be 7. Again, Tyreek, Waddle, nothing else. Durham Smythe had some opportunities, not a great player. So this depends on them not taking a wide receiver and taking a tight end instead. They'd be 7. Indianapolis will be 8. Listen, I like Kyle Granson. Well, I like Cox is still there. Will Mallory. Seems like Indy just collects these middling tight ends. So if they can go out and get one and really make them the focal point of the offense behind Michael Pittman, just like they would a wide receiver, I think that's a good fit. After that, I have 7 for me was Carolina. They're on a separate column. Carolina 7. Again, Tommy Tremble, not worried about him. 10 for me is the Rams. Tyler Higbee's hurt. The guy stepped up last year, Cooper Kupp. That offense uses the tight end a little more, so they are 10 in redraft, 12 in dynasty. 11 for me in both redraft and dynasty in New Orleans Saints. Juwan Johnson's good. Not great. I think a good tight end could go and easily take his job from him. So they're 11. 12 for me in redraft is Kansas City. Travis Kelce's there, and I think we're all going to keep playing this. When does Travis Kelce hit that age cliff? I don't know. Kansas City for me is 12 in redraft, 8 in dynasty. Because I don't know if Travis Kelce plays past this year. Seemed like he was probably contemplating retirement this year. We'll see what happens next year. Especially if Kansas City three-peats, I think he's definitely done. I think it was tough for him with his brother Jason retiring. Didn't want to steal that thunder. Wanted to come back another year. Wanted to three-peat. I think had they lost the Super Bowl, I think both Kelce's retire. I think the chance of a three-peat really kept him there. So We're wrapping up here on Treadmill Talks. We're talking rookie landing spot rankings. Went through quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, finishing up our tight ends. Appreciate you guys tuning in on these on Sundays. Been about 40 minutes or so. I'm going to walk for another 5, finish these up. If you guys have questions, comments, drop them in the chat. If you're watching after the fact, you're not watching live, appreciate you tuning in. Hit a like and subscribe on Dynasty Pros YouTube channel. Love doing this with you guys. Just wait for me to motivate me to get on the treadmill, talk football with you guys. So appreciate your encouragements. Appreciate you guys who jump in and say hi, ask me questions. Really helps me kind of not ramble, get a little more to talk about. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in there. So we just said KC was 12 in redraft, 8 in Dynasty, redraft 13, and redraft and Dynasty is 13. San Francisco 49ers. Not sure how long George Kittle's going to be there. It seems like Brock Purdy likes George Kittle. So maybe they can bring a guy in who can learn under Kittle for a year, maybe 2. Kind of moving that offense. They don't really have on the offense who's a good pass catcher behind Kittle in the tight end spot. They're 13. 14 in both redraft and Dynasty is Houston. Dalton Schultz is there. Young team. We know C.J. Stroud's good. Nico Collins is pretty good. But how long is Nico Collins going to be there? There was trade talks. Dalton Schultz, I think, is on a 1-year deal. So Diggs is on a 1-year deal now. So they have all this like rotating pieces. Maybe in 2025, that tight end becomes a number 2 option on the team, or maybe number 3. Decent for a rotational guy on your fantasy lineup. They're 14th. 15th for me is Philadelphia. Dallas Goedert is the same age that Zach Ertz was when Philadelphia drafted Dallas Goedert. So could Philadelphia draft a guy this year, rotate him in, same way they did with Dallas Goedert, rotate him in for a year or 2, move on from Dallas Goedert when his contract goes up. Not sure what that contract looks like, but maybe Philadelphia does the same thing where they bring a guy in, work him in slowly, takes over in a year or 2. Not a ton of value this year, but maybe in Dynasty, probably a guy I'll be picking up late. They're 15 for me. Those are the only ones I did for rookie landing spots for tight ends. Obviously, anything can happen in the draft. Minnesota could go draft a tight end. What does that mean? I don't know, because we still have T.J. Hockenson. Do they go a 2 tight end set? Does Atlanta go get a tight end and make Kyle Pitts almost strictly a wide receiver? Anything's possible, right? Like, that's the fun of the draft. They could also change up and go to the Patriots of Gronk and Hernandez, right? That's what people could do. Maybe Pittsburgh goes out and gets a guy with Arthur Smith there who had Pitts and Jonnu Smith. Maybe he gets Pittsburgh to draft a guy. Maybe they draft one of those guys, like a Ben Simmons, and he's just out there and eats in the fry and moves value. What I love about the draft is we can predict all we want now, and that's where I don't like ranking these rookie prospects. Again, I tier rookie prospects, rank landing spots. Once they're drafted, I can kind of mix them up. So if my tier 1 guys are all here, whoever goes to that first landing spot is probably going to be 1 on my board. Whichever 2. But if a guy from tier 2 goes to like number 3 landing spot, maybe he moves up a little bit. And then I kind of play the game of fit, skill set, all that kind of stuff. Running backs, maybe I really like. If you guys follow us on Dynasty Pros, I interviewed Dylan Lobby maybe a month ago, right after the Senior Bowl. Super cool guy, great pass catcher, a lot of speed. Can he be a workhorse back? Possibly, but probably more of that pass catcher, Austin Eckler type. Maybe works in that role. Depends on where he goes. So he's in my tier 2. He's one of my top 4 landing spots, though, that needs a pass catcher. He probably moves up a little bit for me. If someone like a bruiser, like I think who's a big back in this thing, Braylon Allen, maybe he goes to a worse landing spot. I moved down my rankings. So I'm tiering my prospects, ranking my landing spots this year. So I went through my rankings for rookie landing spots this year. Thanks for tuning in for Treadmill Talks on this Sunday. It's April 7th or so. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe. Give me a follow on YouTube. Check us out, Dynasty Pro Football. We got a ton of rookie content out there. Our team put out a ton of rookie guides, kind of primers, of top 10s, sleepers. We've done some rookie profiles. We're doing dynasty dilemmas and all those things. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit us up on social medias. Hit me up at the DUnit13, Dynasty Bros Football, Dynasty Bros FF on Twitter. Biggest thing you guys can do to support us. Subscribe on YouTube. Tell your friends. Hang out every Sunday, usually around the 1:30 Central Time, 2 Eastern. Do Treadmill Talks, 45 minutes. Me talking football with you guys. Drop a comment, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.